38-144 of the Code of Ordinances of the Borough of Naugatuck. Legal notice has been published in the Republican American on June 2nd, 2024. There will be a recording. Everyone will be given an opportunity to speak. So we're going to open this up with Police Chief Colin McAllister, who has recommended that we adopt this ordinance. So Colin, if you could give us an overview of the ordinance to start off.
All right, so the conception of this ordinance came about with our efforts regionally and also with the Department of Environmental Services Police Department, trying to increase our effectiveness on the bridle trail, the Larkin Bridle Trail. Prior to that, Naugatuck has had history in the past of some issues with ATV vehicles being disruptive on land that's not just recreational access land, but also public land, private land. So this seems to be the stance or the model ordinance that most of the other municipalities in the area have adopted. And speaking with the borough's attorney, they drafted this ordinance off best practices from a series of other municipalities. The idea being that we're all consistent in how we choose to enforce ATVs. The big difference with this local ordinance over the state ordinances or the state statute that allows police officers to take action on ATVs is that this ordinance will allow the police officers to seize the ATVs and then through a hearing process that obviously the subject of this can appeal that to the borough. But it's far more difficult and not always a clear path for officers to be able to seize an ATV under state statute. So this is one of the tools that I'm looking to give our officers in order to curb illegal ATV use. You know, we put up a couple public service announcements, videos on our social media, working with our partners. There's really three things that are coming up consistently, which is particularly with the Larkin Bridle Trail, is that it's been disruptive to the passive use, particularly bridle use with horseback riding. There have been incidences where horseback riders have been injured, as well as it's scaring animals. It's also disruptive to the environment. It's destroying the trail from its intended use. We're looking to preserve the environmental or limit the environmental impact that these vehicles have on that, as this wasn't designed for ATV and motorized vehicle use, as well as the other restricted areas of town too that are going to be impacted by this. And then, like I said, lastly, there's the hazard that these vehicles are posing when they're used unrestricted in these areas. So this ordinance is really going to give us locally, not just the authority, but also tools to limit and curb illegal ATV use. And it's my hope that by adopting this ordinance, it will help us in our efforts to try to curb this.
Okay, first of all, do any of the Burgesses have questions for the chief?
I have just one comment. Attorney Fitzpatrick sent in a.
Yeah.
You wanna go first?
Oh, I didn't call on either one of you, so.
I just pushed ahead.
I'm gonna call on Deputy Mayor Rocky Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there. Attorney Fitzpatrick sent in a revised definition in the ordinance on what operate means. But I noticed on the one that he sent in, something needs to be changed in here because it mentions a different city than Naugatuck. I guess they copied verbatim from another city. So I don't know how we have to add this in later.
Well, the copy
No.
and paste it.
It's actually not inaccurate because because I thought the same thing, Rocky, but it says where we include Bridgeport's definition of operate. So this is just meant to quote
Yeah.
the Bridgeport ordinance.
I don't know, I texted him and he said it should be changed to Naugatuck.
Agree.
Okay.
Both points are solid. I think we amend that definition and we amend the ordinance to put the proposed ordinance to put in the to refer to Naugatuck specifically. The purpose, of course, was to adopt the Bridgeport model. As you recall, at the last public hearing, we discussed that taking a little broader position on operation, and that definition does it. And it's been effective. It's been effective in the city, particularly Bridgeport.
Okay. Mike,
Yeah, my question is, if you do confiscate one of the motorized vehicles, what do you do with that?
So there is a process in here for requesting a hearing before forfeiture of motorized recreational vehicles. So the complainant would have a chance to appeal that, and then at which point it would be turned over to obviously the borough office if it was determined that it was going to be forfeited. So at this point, I'm not aware of any internal processes we have for forfeited property, but that's something we would have to determine if we're going to encounter that. But it would be forfeited to the borough of Naugatuck, so I assume we would take whatever action we have in a forfeited property.
But the reason I ask is I heard that Bridgeport takes the motor vehicles that are confiscated, and they crush them, and then they put them in the scrap pile. And I just hope that we wouldn't have to do that.
So some municipalities have had enough of an issue, that particularly the urban ones, where they do as a public service announcement and publicly destroy them or do things like that to try to make a statement. I don't anticipate us seizing that number of them. Again, this is more of a deterrent. It's more of an issue to try to hurt those individuals. But I mean, obviously, if we end up seizing a large number, there's checks and balances to make that decision about what we do with it. But I don't anticipate us any public rushing of them. And
Rocky,
In the past, you've confiscated vehicles. I believe one of the past, their vehicles was a confiscated car. Was there a procedure for those that would be the same?
so seized vehicles previously are generally under asset forfeiture. So those are a separate process. They're seized as a result of drug and narcotics cases. But those asset forfeiture cases are governed by the state and as well as the federal process. However, that was reformed probably about in the last decade. So vehicles are, it's more common for them to be turned over to municipalities. So we don't see the vehicles being awarded to municipalities as commonly or as frequent as we would say 10 years ago. So yes, it's happened, but not as frequently.
When it's a state's procedure, they would consider an ATV a motor vehicle.
Well, it would have to have a nexus to drug case. For
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And something relationship to what you said, like, there's some due diligence that has to go on in the meantime to make sure that the person operating the bike is in fact the owner, it's not a stolen bike, and everything. And what I'm reading in the legislation, and Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, if in fact it was a stolen vehicle, it would go back to the original owner because they're not sure what it. I'll let them hear.
any other Burgess questions? All right, we're gonna open it up to the general public for public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would like to make a comment about the proposed ordinance on recreational vehicles?
My name is Michael Cochiola, and I'm from 98 Briarwood Road in Naugatuck. I'm here to appeal to help to ensure the long life of our bridle trails and attractions. We have a series of volunteers here. And what we do is we take care of the bridle trails, the water irrigation systems, the offshoots of the trails back and forth. We want to thank the borough of Naugatuck, the trail volunteers, passive trail lovers, for exceptional creation, maintenance of such a fabulous resource, and the mental and physical health that is provided to us as a borough. I think I also want to thank the police chief. Go back to my notes. Thank the police chief for his 3 points in which he's going to bring in some additional resource in order to ensure that those bridle trails aren't wrecked up by ATVs. But I'm here to ask the borough particular questions and to say, I'm going to challenge you to consider 3 different points. And there's 3 different points. What should afford to give us to support those bridle trails? And I'm going to give you some ideas. The first thing is grant money. The second thing is the additional law enforcement, and the chiefs are providing that. Boundary creation, which would include gates, some kind of fencing where entries can occur. Cameras is another option. If you guys can take a look at 3 or 4 different options to ensure that ATVs can't come in there, and that the irrigation system is not gonna get ruined, and that the people of Naugatuck, Middlebury, and any place else around who enjoys those trails doesn't deal with a devastated trail, what can you do to support us in the context of volunteerism, in the context of what we're community with the. That's my question.
I'll start off.
What's that?
I'll start off. So remember, it's not rural properties
Right,
deed,
yes.
so the boundaries, there's not much, if anything, you can do. Cameras at entrances and key points where the ATVs enter, to me would be a good point for us to consider where we could help, is the cameras to be on borough property, so that is something we could do. I think it's fair to say that, speaking for myself, and I think everyone up here, we love the bridle trail. We love trails. We, as a group, will do whatever we can to help. We don't have all the money in the world to spend, but we are in the process of acquiring cameras for other problems, you know, litter, graffiti, things like that. And this would be certainly in my mind, an area where cameras would be helpful. As far as specific projects, you know, we're all in favor of them. If, you know, I know there've been great volunteer groups, and the town has worked with the volunteer groups. We're always willing to do that with the street department. I would say if you have a specific project in mind, you should come to the town, and we'll meet with Jeremy Lennon, who's in the back row, and we'll look for a way to make it happen. It's not all borough land, but in the past, we have found a way to make things happen. You know, I look at the trail network like there's borough land, there's Middlebury land, there's deep land, there's open space, but the trails all blend together and benefit all of those groups. So we treat them as if we're Native Americans making the best use of the land that we can. At least that's my philosophy, and I think we'll continue that.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, any further public comment? Ben?
Sure, Vincent Seifert, 685 King Street, and Nick and Michael for Michael, one of our volunteers for the trail system, as you likely know, and we, as a group, residents and volunteers, commend the borough greatly and its foresight to take hold of this problem that's really starting to develop a lot in the last 2 years. So I'm glad we're not waiting until it's too late to save some of the great trails that we have. So I just want to keep it short. I have like only praise to offer, you know, to everybody in the police department, including this endeavor. I would like to request one more carve out, if it's possible, for somehow in this proposed ordinance to allow for vehicles used in maintenance of the trails would not be subject to what's that? Forfeiture, yeah. We currently do not have such vehicles being used, but I could foresee perhaps in the future with some ambitious projects that we have in mind, and I'm sure the borough will continue to support us. It would be unfortunate, you know, if somebody's trying to do a good deed, ends up because of a technicality, get in trouble. So I don't know if there's any way that could be interjected into this ordinance.
Yeah, makes good sense.
It's within our powers.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Why don't you, while we're doing other things, draft something up, and when we get to it on the agenda, we'll take it up.
Sure, certainly, thank you.
Okay. Any further public comment? Last call for public comment. We will close the public hearing at 7:10. Have the next public hearing.